Ethan's shuttle hummed softly as it descended through Lyriath's upper atmosphere. Outside the window, the planet looked like a living painting. Floating islands drifted gracefully above glowing green forests, and rivers of light wound their way between tall crystal towers. The air shimmered with soft bioluminescence, giving the landscape an almost magical glow. Ethan leaned forward in his seat, heart racing. He had trained for this moment for years. Humans had visited other worlds before, but Lyriath was special. Its people were not just technologically advanced, they were deeply curious about other civilizations. And humans were rare here. They were admired for their creativity, their adaptability, and their ability to find solutions where others might fail. Ethan felt both excited and nervous. The shuttle slowed as it approached a massive floating city. Towers of transparent crystal rose like mountains, connected by bridges that glowed faintly with soft blue light. Hovering vehicles zipped between the towers, carrying creatures of all shapes and sizes. Ethan could see small winged beings weaving through the traffic, their movements precise and graceful. The shuttle landed gently on a wide platform near the city center. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped out. The air was crisp with a faint scent of flowers and ozone. A group of Lyriathian officials awaited him, tall and slender with shimmering skin that reflected the light around them. Their eyes were bright, intelligent, and curious, studying him with interest. "Welcome to Lyriath, Ethan of Earth," a tall figure said. His voice was melodic and calm. "I am Minister Voren, and we are honored to host you." Ethan bowed politely. "Thank you, Minister. It is an honor to be here." As they walked through the city, Ethan could not stop looking around. Floating lanterns drifted lazily in the sky, their soft light reflecting in the clear crystalline buildings. He saw children playing on levitating platforms, their laughter echoing like music. Birds of every color and shape flew past, some of them glowing faintly. Ethan realized that Lyriath was more than advanced technology. It was a world built with care, where beauty and intelligence lived together. Soon they arrived at the palace. It was enormous even by Lyriathian standards. Towers spiraled upward, their tips disappearing into the clouds, and terraces stretched out over the floating gardens below. The air around the palace felt alive, as if it itself were watching. Ethan's heart raced with excitement and nervousness. Inside the palace, the walls shimmered with light. Holographic projections of Lyriath's history floated in the air, showing battles, discoveries, and great achievements. The corridors were filled with elegant beings, all moving with grace and purpose. Ethan felt small, but also aware that he was being watched closely. Humans were rare here, and curiosity about him was intense. Finally, they entered the throne room. It was larger than any building Ethan had ever seen. The floor glowed softly under his feet, reflecting patterns of light that shifted and changed. At the far end of the room sat the royal family, King Tharion, tall and regal, Queen Valera, graceful and wise, and Princess Alara, young but radiating energy and curiosity. Ethan's breath caught when he saw the princess. She had striking features, bright, intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything, and a confident posture that made her presence almost magnetic. She was studying him carefully, tilting her head slightly as if she were trying to understand him without words. Minister Voren stepped forward. "Your Majesties, this is Ethan of Earth, a representative of your human visitors. He has traveled across the stars to learn from Lyriath and share his world with us." King Tharion inclined his head. "Welcome, Ethan of Earth. Your journey is long and difficult. We honor your courage." Queen Valera's gaze was thoughtful. "We have heard much about humans. Your species is remarkable." Then, unexpectedly, Princess Alara stood. She pointed directly at Ethan. The room went silent. "I want him," she declared, her voice clear and confident. The court gasped. Some Lyriathians murmured among themselves. The queen raised an eyebrow, and the king's expression shifted to one of surprise. Ethan froze. He had expected curiosity, even awe, but nothing like this. "Excuse me?" Ethan said, blinking. His voice sounded small in the vast throne room. Princess Alara's gaze did not waver. "I said I want him. He is interesting. I must meet him, learn from him, and understand him." The queen stepped forward, her expression composed but clearly amused. "Alara, you cannot simply declare your wishes like that in front of the court." Alara smiled, a mixture of mischief and determination. "Mother, I am not speaking of desire or whims. I am speaking of curiosity. Humans are rare. This one is here, and I must see what makes him different." Ethan blinked. He realized that her declaration was not about romance or status. It was about his mind, his abilities, and what he represented. Humans were admired here not for strength or power, but for creativity, problem-solving, and adaptability. Alara's words were a challenge, a test of his potential to contribute, learn, and share. Minister Voren cleared his throat. Perhaps a more private introduction would be wise. The king nodded. Yes, Ethan, you will dine with us tonight. Alara will join you. We will see what insights you may bring. The rest of the court began to disperse, leaving Ethan and the royal family alone in the throne room. The princess approached him, her eyes still fixed on his. Do you know why you are here? She asked, her tone curious but friendly. Ethan shook his head. I hope to learn, and to share what humans know. Alara tilted her head, studying him as if weighing every word. Humans are clever, but also unpredictable. That is why you fascinate me. I want to see if your mind is as unique as I believe. Ethan swallowed hard. He had traveled across the galaxy, faced many unknowns, but nothing compared to the feeling of being examined by someone so intelligent, so open-minded, and yet so confident in her own judgments. Dinner was served in a floating garden, filled with glowing flowers and trees that seemed to hum with life. Ethan marveled at the alien cuisine, fruits that sparkled, liquids that shimmered, and dishes that changed colors as they were eaten. Alara explained each dish with pride, showing that she was both knowledgeable and playful. As they ate, they talked about Earth and Lyriath, their cultures, their histories, and the wonders of their worlds. Ethan found himself laughing, sharing stories of human invention and creativity. Alara listened intently, asking questions that challenged him to think in new ways. By the end of the meal, Ethan realized something important. This was more than a royal encounter. It was the beginning of a connection built on curiosity, respect, and mutual fascination. Humans were rare on Lyriath, but they were valued for what they could bring: fresh ideas, creative solutions, and a new perspective on the universe. As the evening ended, Alara stood beside him, pointing again, not out of whim, but with a clear intention. Tomorrow we begin your trials, she said. I want to see what makes you truly human. Ethan nodded, feeling both nervous and excited. He understood now that being pointed at by a princess was not about privilege or status. It was about opportunity. An opportunity to show the best of humanity, to inspire, and to learn. The stars above Lyriath shone brightly that night, casting a gentle glow over the floating city. Ethan looked out at the vast landscape filled with wonder. He knew that his life had changed forever. The adventure of a human among the stars had only just begun. The next morning, the palace was alive with quiet energy. Ethan awoke in a guest chamber that overlooked the floating gardens. The sunlight streamed through tall, crystalline windows, casting rainbow patterns across the room. He had barely slept, his mind buzzing with the events of the previous evening. A princess had pointed at him, declared she wanted him, and now he was to face some kind of trial. A soft chime echoed through the room. A small drone hovered inside, carrying a message from Princess Alara. Meet me in the central atrium. We begin today. Be prepared to think, not just act. Ethan dressed quickly and made his way to the atrium. The palace corridors stretched endlessly, glowing faintly beneath his feet. Creatures of all shapes moved gracefully along the paths, paying him little attention, as though humans were already accepted here, though rare. When he entered the central atrium, Alara was already there. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, and she was surrounded by a holographic projection of a three-dimensional puzzle that rotated slowly in the air. Good morning, Ethan, she said, her tone cheerful. I hope you slept well. Today you will face your first challenge. Ethan studied the puzzle. It was intricate, made of shifting shapes and glowing patterns that seemed to react to his gaze. He felt a pang of anxiety. I'll do my best, he said cautiously. Alara smiled. This is not about doing your best perfectly. It's about creativity and perspective. Look at it carefully. See what humans see. Ethan stepped closer. He noticed that each shape emitted a soft hum when touched. The puzzle seemed to respond to ideas, not just movement. He remembered stories of human intuition, how humans could often see connections that others missed. Slowly, he began experimenting. At first, nothing happened. But then he tried something unexpected. Instead of moving the pieces in the obvious order, he allowed the shapes to interact randomly. The puzzle shifted, colors blended, and suddenly a pattern emerged. It wasn't the solution Alara had anticipated, but it was elegant and complete. Alara's eyes widened. Remarkable. You see solutions differently than we do. Humans are clever in ways I did not expect. Ethan smiled, relieved. I guess humans think outside the usual rules. Alara laughed softly. Indeed. Now for your second trial. They moved to the palace gardens. Ethan marveled at the floating terraces, each filled with glowing plants and flowers that seemed to sing when touched. A holographic sign appeared. Create a human-inspired installation. Your task, Alara explained, is to bring a piece of your world here. Use your imagination to share something of Earth with Lirioth. Make it meaningful. Ethan thought for a moment. He could have used technology to impress them, but Alara had made it clear that creativity and human perspective mattered more than brilliance. He picked up a few glowing orbs from the garden and began arranging them in a spiral pattern. Inspired by the Fibonacci sequence, a pattern found in both Earth and nature, he added small floating mirrors to reflect the light, creating a cascade of colors that changed as the sun moved. Birds and small flying creatures seemed drawn to the installation, adding their own motion to the display. Alara floated beside him, her expression one of awe. This is beautiful. It feels alive, like it is part of the garden itself. Humans have a way of connecting art and life that is different. Ethan nodded. We try to see the world as one whole, not separate parts. I guess it comes naturally to us. You are right, Alara said softly. That is what fascinates me about humans. You do not just solve problems, you integrate life and thought in ways we do not always see. The next trial was even more unusual. Alara led him to a clearing, where strange creatures moved gracefully, their forms constantly shifting. They were intelligent and communicative, but in a way Ethan had never encountered. Your third trial, Alara explained, is to communicate with them. Do not force your methods. Observe, listen, and find a connection. Ethan knelt on the ground and watched. The creatures emitted subtle light pulses and melodic tones. At first he felt frustrated. He could not mimic their signals perfectly. Then he realized that the creatures responded not to imitation but to genuine interaction. Ethan hummed softly, letting his tone vary naturally, and the creatures responded with their own shifting lights. Slowly, a pattern emerged, a kind of conversation. Alara watched silently, impressed. You are connecting without words. That is remarkable. Humans have intuition that surpasses technology in moments like this. By the end of the day, Ethan was exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced puzzles, created art, and communicated with alien creatures. All challenges that were not physical but mental and emotional. Alara and Ethan sat on the edge of a floating terrace, watching the bioluminescent city glow in the evening light. You did well today, Alara said. Most Liriathians would have struggled with these tasks. You handled them with something special. Curiosity, patience, creativity. That is very human. Ethan smiled. I never imagined humans could be admired like this. On Earth we are just ordinary. But here it seems our way of thinking matters. That is because it does, Alara replied. Your perspective is rare and valuable. I am curious to see how far it can go. They laughed together, a sound that mingled with the soft music of the city around them. In that moment, Ethan realized that the trials were not just about proving himself. They were about understanding, learning, and building a bridge between worlds. That night, in the guest chambers, Ethan reflected on the day. He felt pride in his achievements, but also a deep sense of responsibility. Humans had been given a rare chance to influence an alien world, not through force, but through intelligence, creativity, and empathy. Princess Alara's words echoed in his mind. I want to see what makes you truly human." He understood now that it was not a personal desire but a recognition of humanity's unique qualities. As the stars shone over Lariath, Ethan felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. He was no longer just an explorer. He was a representative of humanity, a symbol of curiosity and ingenuity in a world far beyond Earth. Tomorrow promised new challenges, and he would meet them with the same openness and creativity that had earned him Alara's admiration. The adventure was only beginning, and Ethan knew that the trials of curiosity would shape not only his path, but also the future of human Lyriathian relations. The next day the palace was alive with excitement. Today was the Festival of Stars, a grand celebration held once every decade on Lariath. It honored the bonds between different worlds and the sharing of knowledge across the galaxy. The festival was a mix of dazzling lights, music, and storytelling, filling the city with colors and energy that seemed almost alive. Ethan woke early, eager and nervous. This festival was unlike anything he had experienced on Earth. Entire streets floated in the air, glowing softly, lined with exotic flowers and crystal sculptures. Floating lanterns drifted in precise patterns, their lights synchronized with soft music that filled the sky. Alien families, diplomats, and artists moved gracefully along the streets, preparing for the celebrations. Princess Alara arrived at his chambers, radiant in flowing robes that shimmered like starlight. "Are you ready, Ethan?" she asked, her eyes sparkling. "I think so," Ethan replied, trying to steady his voice. "It's incredible here. I've never seen anything like it," Alara laughed softly. "You will see even more. Today you have a special role. You will represent humans in the festival. Show them what Earth has to offer." Ethan nodded, his heart beating faster. He had prepared a small presentation of human culture, music, storytelling, and art, but he had no idea how it would be received by aliens who had never experienced anything like it. The festival began at the central plaza, a vast floating platform surrounded by the glowing towers of the palace. Thousands of Lyriathians had gathered, their eyes curious and expectant. Holographic lights danced above the crowd and ethereal music filled the air, blending naturally with the soft hum of the city. Alara led Ethan to the stage, where he would perform. She leaned close and whispered, "Remember, humans are different. Be yourself. Show them your perspective. That is what they will remember." Ethan took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. At first, the crowd watched silently, their eyes wide with curiosity. Humans were rare here, and most had never met one in person. Ethan began with a simple story from Earth, about a young inventor who dreamed of flying. He told it in clear, basic words, adding gestures and expressions to make it vivid. As he spoke, holographic images appeared in the air representing his words. A small flying machine lifted off the ground, tiny figures running and laughing as the inventor's story unfolded. The audience gasped, some leaning forward to watch the story more closely. When Ethan finished, he transitioned into music. He played a simple tune on a small instrument he had brought from Earth. The melody was soft but emotional, and it carried feelings that needed no words. Even aliens who could not understand human language could sense the emotion and creativity behind it. Princess Alara watched intently, her expression one of awe. "This is remarkable," she whispered to herself. "Humans create beauty that touches others, even without words. He is extraordinary." The crowd erupted in applause, their voices blending with the music and lights. Ethan felt a surge of pride, realizing that humans were admired not just for intelligence, but for their ability to inspire and connect emotionally. After his performance, Alara led him through the festival. There were displays of alien technology, glowing creatures performing aerial dances and floating holograms telling stories from other worlds. Yet every time they passed a group of spectators, Ethan noticed curious glances and smiles. Humans were different, and that difference was celebrated. At one exhibit, a group of Lyriathian children tried to mimic the melodies he had played. Ethan laughed, guiding them gently. "Not like this," he said, showing them a simple rhythm. Soon they were creating new tunes together, a mixture of human music and alien harmonics. Alara watched, her eyes shining. "See? Humans do more than create. They inspire others to create too." Later, they arrived at a massive floating garden, the centerpiece of the festival. Lanterns hovered above, shifting colors with the movement of the wind. Alara gestured to a blank space. Your next task, she said, is to leave your mark here. Make something that blends earth and Liriath. Ethan thought for a moment. He gathered a few glowing crystals, some reflective panels, and the soft luminescent vines growing nearby. Using them, he created a floating sculpture that changed colors with the light and moved gently with the breeze. He incorporated small earth symbols, spirals, simple geometric shapes, and combined them with Liriathian patterns. Alara floated beside him, clearly impressed. This is incredible. You have taken your world and made it part of ours. Humans have a way of seeing connections that others miss. The final event of the festival was the Dance of the Stars, where lights and music formed patterns in the sky, reflecting the harmony of different worlds. Ethan joined the dance, moving awkwardly at first but gradually following the rhythm. Alara matched his movements, guiding him with gentle encouragement. Together they created a unique pattern that no one had seen before. The light swirled around them, changing colors with every step. The crowd watched in awe as the human and Liriathian styles blended seamlessly. For a moment, the festival paused in quiet wonder, celebrating the unity of their worlds. By the end of the day, Ethan was exhausted but exhilarated. He had shared his culture, inspired creativity, and connected with thousands of beings who had never experienced anything like Earth before. More importantly, he had strengthened his bond with Princess Alara, who had chosen him not for status or power, but for his mind, heart, and spirit. As they walked back to the palace, Alara spoke quietly. You have done more than I imagined. Humans are truly remarkable. I'm beginning to understand why they are so admired across the galaxy. Ethan smiled. I never thought we would be seen that way. On Earth we are just ordinary, but here it seems our creativity and curiosity are something special. That is because they are, Alara said. Humans bring something different to the universe. You have reminded us of that. That night, Ethan looked out over the floating city from his chamber. The festival lights glimmered below like a river of stars. He felt a deep sense of pride and responsibility. Humans were rare, yes, but their minds and hearts had the power to connect worlds, inspire others, and create beauty in places no one had imagined. Princess Alara appeared at the window, a small smile on her face. Tomorrow, she said softly, your next trials begin. There are more challenges ahead, but I am confident you will continue to impress. Ethan nodded. I am ready. I want to do my best for both Earth and Liriath. She laughed lightly, her voice warm and melodic. You already have. But the universe is vast, and there is always more to learn. The stars above Liriath glimmered like diamonds, casting a gentle glow over the city. Ethan realized that he had not only survived his first festival, but had truly made a mark. Humans were special, not because of strength or power, but because of their minds, hearts, and ability to inspire. And somewhere in the palace, Princess Alara watched him with quiet admiration, knowing that the human she had chosen was already proving himself in ways no one could have predicted. Ethan went to sleep that night with a sense of excitement for the days ahead. New trials awaited, challenges that would test his creativity, intelligence, and empathy. But he knew that with curiosity, respect, and courage, humans could rise to meet any challenge, even among the stars. The morning after the Festival of Stars, the palace was quieter than usual. The celebrations had ended, leaving behind a lingering glow in the floating gardens and terraces. Ethan awoke with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The previous day had been extraordinary, but he sensed that new challenges awaited. A message drone hovered into his room, carrying an invitation from Princess Alara. Meet me in the council hall. Important matters to discuss. Ethan dressed quickly, his mind racing with possibilities. The council hall was enormous, its crystal walls reflecting the soft morning light. Rows of seats lined the sides, filled with advisors, nobles, and dignitaries. At the center, Princess Alara waited, her posture confident and calm. Good morning, Ethan, she said warmly. Today you face a different kind of challenge, one of wisdom and diplomacy. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He had already faced puzzles, art, music, and communication trials. But this sounded different, more serious. Alara led him to the center of the hall. Some of the Liriathian nobles are concerned about your presence here, she explained. They question whether a human, someone from another world, should influence our traditions and decisions. You must speak with them, Convince them not with power but with thought and understanding. Ethan nodded. He had faced skepticism before, but this was new. Convincing an entire group of advanced aliens would require careful reasoning and diplomacy. The council began quietly murmuring as Ethan stepped forward. The nobles' expressions were varied: curiosity, caution, and a hint of skepticism. Ethan took a deep breath and addressed them. "Esteemed members of the council," he began, "I understand that humans are rare here, and that my presence may seem unusual. But I am not here to challenge your traditions or impose my ways. I am here to share, to learn, and to collaborate." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Humans have traveled across the stars, not just to conquer or take, but to exchange ideas, to solve problems together, and to create understanding between worlds. I hope to show you that our perspectives, though different, can complement yours." A tall noble raised a hand. His skin shimmered silver in the morning light. "Ethan of Earth, your words are polite, but what makes humans special? Why should we value your ideas above our own centuries of knowledge?" Ethan thought carefully. "Humans are special because we adapt. We see connections that are not obvious. We combine ideas from different fields to solve problems in creative ways. Sometimes the solutions we find are unexpected, but effective. And we value cooperation. We respect the knowledge of others and build upon it." Another noble, her eyes glowing softly, leaned forward. "And why does Princess Alara support you? Surely she must see your uniqueness, but is that enough to justify our trust?" Ethan smiled gently. "Princess Alara sees what I hope you can see too, that humans are curious, thoughtful, and willing to learn. My goal is not to take influence, but to demonstrate that our way of thinking can bring new insights. If humans are welcomed with respect and openness, we can contribute to Lyriathian society in meaningful ways, without replacing or diminishing your traditions." The council was silent. Ethan realized that he was not just speaking to impress them, he was representing humanity itself. Every word mattered. Alara stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "The human before you has shown creativity, insight, and courage. He has not sought to dominate, only to engage. That is a quality we value on Lyriath. It is rare and it is worthy of consideration." The nobles exchanged glances. Some nodded slowly, others whispered among themselves. Ethan could feel the tension, but also a subtle shift. They were listening, evaluating not only his words, but the honesty and integrity behind them. A younger noble spoke next, her tone curious. "Ethan, if you are accepted, how will you help Lyriath without imposing Earth customs?" Ethan thought for a moment. "By listening first. By understanding your traditions, your values, and your knowledge. Only then can humans contribute in ways that are meaningful and respectful. I am not here to replace anything, but to offer a fresh perspective. To work alongside Lyriathians to create solutions that benefit all." The eldest noble, his voice resonant, spoke last. "You speak wisely. Humans are rare in our midst, but perhaps that rarity is a strength. Different perspectives can reveal paths we cannot see ourselves. Princess Alara's choice is unconventional, but it may be wise." Ethan exhaled quietly, realizing that the council was beginning to accept him. It was not instant, and he still had much to prove, but he could feel the seeds of respect taking root. After the council meeting, Alara guided Ethan to a private terrace overlooking the city. The floating gardens shimmered in the afternoon light, the rivers of light below reflecting the beauty of Lyriath. "You did well," Alara said softly. "The council is cautious, but they respect you. Not because you are human, but because you speak with honesty, intelligence, and understanding. That is rare here." Ethan smiled. "Thank you, Princess. I just hope I can continue to earn their trust." Alara nodded. "You will. But there is one more aspect of today's challenge, your personal insight. Humans are admired for how they approach life, not just for what they do. Show them your values, your ethics. That is as important as your intelligence." Ethan reflected on her words. It was true. Intelligence alone was not enough. To be admired, he had to demonstrate integrity, empathy, and respect for others. That evening, the palace held a banquet. Humans and Lyriathians sat side by side, sharing food, stories, and laughter. Ethan participated fully, engaging with the nobles in conversation, listening to their ideas, and offering his own perspectives thoughtfully. When a young Lyriathian questioned the fairness of mixing human ideas with traditional practices, Ethan responded calmly. Change does not have to mean replacing what came before. We can integrate, improve, and respect traditions while finding new solutions. That is how humans build progress, by honoring the past while exploring the future. The Lyriathians were impressed. His words were simple yet thoughtful, reflecting a human ability to balance logic, creativity, and ethics. Princess Alara watched quietly, proud of the human she had chosen. By the end of the evening, the nobles had begun to acknowledge Ethan as more than a guest. He was a partner, someone who could contribute, inspire, and bridge worlds. They did not yet fully understand humanity, but they had seen glimpses of its potential through his actions, words, and ideas. As the banquet ended, Alara led Ethan to a quiet balcony. The sky above Lyriath was dotted with stars, and the floating gardens glowed softly below. "You see," she said, "humans are not just clever or strong. You have insight, empathy, and creativity. You are not perfect, but your perspective is unique, and that is why you matter here." Ethan looked out at the city, filled with wonder. "I never realized humans could be admired in this way. On Earth we are ordinary. Here it feels like we have a chance to make a difference." Alara smiled. "You already have, and there is more ahead. The Council has accepted the beginnings of your presence here, but the future will test both your intelligence and your heart." "I believe you are ready." Ethan nodded, feeling a deep sense of responsibility. He understood now that being human was not just about what he could do individually. It was about representing an entire species, demonstrating the qualities that made humans special, and showing that cooperation, creativity, and integrity could bridge worlds. As the night settled over Lyriath, Ethan reflected on the day's lessons. Humans were admired not for dominance, but for thoughtfulness, adaptability, and empathy. He had proven that words and actions, guided by honesty and insight, could earn respect even among the most advanced civilizations. And in her private chamber, Princess Alara looked out over the palace gardens. Her choice had been bold, unconventional, but it was already clear that humans were extraordinary. Ethan was not only capable of navigating Lyriathian society, but also of inspiring it. The future was bright, filled with possibility, and she could not wait to see what he would achieve next. The stars above Lyriath shone like diamonds, reflecting the hope and potential that humanity carried. Ethan realized that the royal dilemma had been more than a challenge. It was an opportunity to show what made humans remarkable. The morning sun cast a soft golden glow over Lyriath's floating gardens, painting the city in hues of pink and violet. Ethan stood on a terrace overlooking the palace, taking a deep breath of the crisp, luminous air. Today was a day of new beginnings. He had proven himself through trials, creativity, and diplomacy, and now the royal family had invited him to take on an important role, a cultural ambassador bridging humans and Lyriathians. Princess Alara appeared beside him, her robes shimmering like the morning light. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice calm but filled with excitement. Ethan smiled, though his heart was still racing. "I think so. It's a big responsibility, but I want to do it," Alara nodded. "Then let us begin. Today you are not only a guest, you are a symbol of humanity, of connection, and of curiosity. That is how humans inspire others, and that is what Lyriath will see." They walked together to the central plaza, where the royal family and the council awaited. The citizens of Lyriath had gathered, their eyes wide with anticipation. Today, Ethan would formally be welcomed into the Lyriathian society, not as a visitor, but as a partner, someone whose presence represented trust, collaboration, and the remarkable qualities of humans. King Therion stepped forward, his voice resonant and commanding. "Ethan of Earth, you have journeyed far and faced trials unlike any other. You have shown intelligence, creativity, and a respect for our ways. You have also demonstrated qualities that humans are known for across the galaxy: adaptability, courage, and empathy." Queen Valera continued, her tone gentle but firm. "Your actions have impressed not only us but our people and council. You have earned a place among us not by force but by your mind and your heart. From this day forward, you are our cultural ambassador, a bridge between humans and Lyriathians." Ethan felt his chest swell with pride. He bowed respectfully. "Your Majesties, I am honored. I promise to do my best to learn from Lyriath and to share what humans can offer with respect and care." Princess Alara stepped forward, her eyes meeting Ethan's. "And I promise to guide you, to show you our ways, and to ensure that your journey here is not just yours, but ours together." The crowd erupted in applause. Ethan could see curiosity, admiration, and excitement in the faces around him. Humans were rare on Lyriath, and their admiration was sincere. But it was not just novelty that drew attention. It was the combination of intelligence, empathy, and creativity that Ethan represented. The next weeks were filled with activity. Ethan explored Lyriath's floating cities, studied their technology, and learned their art, science, and culture. He met with scholars, artists, and scientists, sharing knowledge of Earth's discoveries and inventions. He worked with Lyriathians to develop new methods of sustainable energy, using both human and alien techniques. Princess Alara was always by his side, guiding him, challenging him, and sharing her own insights. Together, they created joint projects that combined the best of both worlds. Glowing gardens that adapted to environmental changes, art installations that merged human patterns with Lyriathian holography, and music that harmonized alien tones with Earth rhythms. One afternoon, as they floated above a crystalline river, Alara looked at Ethan thoughtfully. "You know, humans have a way of seeing the universe differently. It's not just what you know, it's how you think, how you connect ideas." "That is why I chose you," Ethan smiled. "I never imagined humans could have such influence in another world. On Earth, we are just ordinary. Here, it seems what we think and create truly matters." "That is why we admire humans," Alara said softly. "Not because you are powerful, but because your minds and hearts are extraordinary. You remind us that curiosity, creativity, and courage can inspire entire societies." The city of Lyriath began to change in subtle ways. Humans were still rare, but their influence was evident. Scholars spoke of human problem-solving methods. Artists incorporated earth patterns and rhythms into their creations. Children played with small puzzles and games inspired by human ideas. The presence of one human, Ethan, was enough to spark curiosity, creativity, and collaboration across the city. One evening, Ethan and Alara attended a ceremony in the floating gardens. Lanterns floated in intricate patterns, their light reflecting off the crystal towers. Lyriathians and humans alike gathered to celebrate the ongoing collaboration between their worlds. Music filled the air, blending alien tones with earth melodies, creating a harmony that seemed to reach beyond the stars. Alara turned to Ethan. "Look at this. Your presence has inspired change, not through force, but through ideas, creativity, and respect. This is what humans do best. They connect worlds through thought and heart." Ethan looked around, taking in the glowing gardens, the smiling faces, and the lights above. He felt a deep sense of pride and fulfillment. Humans were special, not because of strength or technology, but because of the qualities they carried, the ability to create, inspire, and unite. That night, as Ethan walked through the gardens alone for a moment, he reflected on his journey. From the moment Princess Alara had pointed at him and declared, "I want him," his life had changed completely. He had traveled across the stars, faced challenges that tested his mind and heart, and now he was part of something much larger than himself. He realized that humanity's strength was not always obvious. It was in the ability to adapt, to think creatively, to empathize with others, and to build connections that spanned worlds. He felt proud to represent humans, to show that even in a distant galaxy their qualities could inspire and unite. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. "Ethan." He turned to see Alara approaching, her expression gentle. "You have done more than I imagined. You have proven that humans are extraordinary. But more than that, you have shown that you can bring our worlds together, not through force, but through understanding and creativity." Ethan smiled. "Thank you, Princess. I could not have done this alone. Your guidance and trust have made all the difference." Alara stepped closer. "And there is still much to do. But now we can move forward together, humans and Lyriathians side by side, learning from each other and creating a better future." Ethan felt a sense of hope and excitement he had never known. Together they could explore new ideas, solve new problems, and build connections that spanned the galaxy. It was not just an adventure, it was a new beginning, one that celebrated humanity's strengths and potential. As the stars shone above Lyriath, Ethan and Alara looked out over the city, the floating gardens glowing beneath them. The air was filled with the soft hum of life, music, and laughter, Humans were rare here, yes, but their qualities, curiosity, creativity, courage, and empathy, were making a real difference. Ethan realized that his journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new trials, and new opportunities to learn and share. But he also knew that humans were capable of extraordinary things and that even a single human could inspire change, understanding, and hope across the stars. Princess Alara looked at him with a small smile. You have become part of Lyriath, Ethan. Not just because you are human, but because of who you are. That is why I wanted you. Ethan returned her smile, and I am grateful. I will continue to do my best to represent humanity and to learn from this amazing world. The floating gardens shimmered in the moonlight, and the city below seemed to glow with possibility. Ethan felt a deep sense of connection, not just to Lyriath, but to the idea that humanity could touch lives far beyond Earth. The trials, the challenges, and even the unexpected declaration of a princess had led him to this moment, a chance to make a meaningful difference. And in the palace, Princess Alara watched, her heart light. The human she had chosen had exceeded all expectations. He had proven that humans were not only clever and creative, but also capable of inspiring and uniting civilizations. Together they would continue to explore, to learn, and to create a future where humans and Lyriathians worked side by side. The stars above Lyriath shimmered like diamonds, and Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity had found a place among the stars, and their journey of discovery, creativity, and connection was just beginning.